with the camera and the microphone. I'd like to share it, but anyhow, a little bit. That's as much as I can stretch the camera. So it's a very small, beautiful cottage that I will be staying for the next 3 weeks. I mean, this past week and 2 more weeks. Krishna Chandra Prabhu has this place, and he has offered very generously for me to have a writing retreat. So here I am trying to write something and to be written myself, to be authored myself. As once I read, the only way your words can have authority in the good sense of the term is if you are being authored by life itself. It doesn't make any sense to be otherwise, so to say. So yeah, we are having some interesting writing sessions. This will be for a 4th book. Of course, the 3rd book is not still yet published, but it's already finished. Now it's in the process of being edited. So I have finished writing the 3rd book, and I was invited to a writing retreat. So of course I cannot write a 3rd book because it's already written. So I had to start writing a 4th one, although the 3rd is not even published. What to do? That was not in my plan, but it was in someone else's diary. So we are writing this 4th one, which will be in connection to the topic of unconditional love, Krishna's unconditional love, and how that can foster proper self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion, as we recently talked with Mahatma Prabhu in our Free Radical podcast. And in that context, how that can help us to do a very intensive, let's call it toxic shame detox, or develop some shame resilience, which is one of the root, I will say, anarthas in our practice and in our life, even way beyond what we generally know as anarthas, like lust, greed, anger, pride. For me, all of those behind have a backdrop of toxic shame and guilt. So we'll be talking about that. Let's see how the project develops. Of course, I'm not thinking about concluding that in the next 2 weeks. So whatever I get, and then whenever that has to be ready. So that has been this week. And of course, every time you write about something, for one's writing to be again realistic and coming from a place of truth, I have to step into my own battles in regards to whatever I'm writing about. So it has been some interesting days in that connection. I'm writing about accepting Krishna's unconditional love and having profound self-acceptance. And of course, part of that implies realizing how one may be lacking in that on some degree or another, because it's not black and white. It's not you have it all or you don't have it at all. So that has been also an interesting situation because, of course, you are by yourself in the mountains for 3 weeks. You have no escape. And I have been without internet almost. So that's a good way to just confront whatever needs to be confronted in the context of trying to write something about it. So it has been a very fruitful week, both internally in terms of external productivity, so to say, but very happy to be here back today with all of you. So that's it. I'm seeing a few hands raised, almost 6 already. So let's begin with the first one, which is Sudevi's hand from Mayapur, I assume. Shri
Yeah.
Mayapur Dham ki jai.
Jai. Hari ki jai. So, Hare Krishna, everyone. Beautiful souls that gather once a week. So amazing. Your surroundings are amazing. Wow, it looks like a picture. It doesn't almost look real. Those green rolling hills and everything. Amazing. So I have what we were doing today, me and a friend who I invited today for the first time, Mandakini Devi Dasi, I think you met her here in Mayapur one time. We were discussing samadhi. We were discussing the word samadhi and like how it can be described as full absorption, a super state of consciousness. And what came up for us was the 3 stages of realization, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And so I wanted to ask you, Maharaj, like, can samadhi exist in those 3 stages? Like, for example, Brahman realization would be like, oneness, and then at time of death, that absorption, which samadhi means that full absorption. Can that be described as a kind of samadhi? Like, could I use the word samadhi, or does samadhi only exist? Basically, like samadhi on the eightfold yoga system, it's the final goal. So is the samadhi on the eightfold yoga system the same as the samadhi in the bhakti yoga system? And can samadhi be applied to these 3 stages of realization, like Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there are a few questions there regarding the term samadhi. So again, as you mentioned, samadhi can be used in different ways, like with many other terms. Sometimes they can be invoked in a more general way, or sometimes in a more specific way. And generally, when it's used more specifically, many times you will find some other terms attached to the word samadhi to indicate which type of samadhi we are talking about. For example, you have these terms like nirvikalpa samadhi, or you have savikalpa samadhi. So just to give you an idea, nirvikalpa refers to the trans-concerned Brahman, let's put it that way, to the undifferentiated absorption into the Brahman aspect of the absolute. And savikalpa samadhi has to do with with the type of samadhi. It has to do with quality, includes qualities, includes variety. So that we will connect more with a personalistic approach, if you will. Now, the word samadhi in itself can have different translations, but in general means perfect meditation or complete meditation. Samadhi. Now, dhi is connected to the word dhimahi. So dhimahi means to meditate, like we have in the Bhagavatam, Satyam Param Dhimahi, or in the Gayatri, Dhimahi. Different lines. Dhimahi means meditation or to meditate, and sam, as we know from Sambandha or some other words, Sankirtan, sam indicates something complete, like uninterrupted. Sometimes you will have this type of like examples for us to help visualize something that is so impossible to explain in words, like a samadhi. Samadhi technically means something that you cannot put it in words, but they give the example of like a current of honey, like honey flowing without breaking, like constant flow that is unbroken or uninterrupted. So samadhi refers to a type of uninterrupted, unbroken meditation. In connection, for example, to the yoga of Patanjali, the Ashtanga yoga, the 8 steps, samadhi is the last one, of course. And you can see a gradual progression to that ultimate state of unbrokenness in terms of meditation or absorption, because in the beginning, as we know, is first yama niyama, to the do's and don'ts, so to say, some moral codes, basically. First of all, be a civilized human being. Yama niyama, then comes what? Asana. Okay, now sit down, pranayama, some breathing exercises to concentrate, to relax, to be more present. And then comes the inward process, so to say, pratyahara, gradually retiring the senses from its objects. Then dharana, which means concentrating the mind, implying an effort to direct the mind in certain direction, which implies there's not an organic, spontaneous absorption yet. Then comes dhyan, which means meditation, which implies there is some effort still, but there is more fixity in whatever we are meditating. And finally comes samadhi, which basically implies you are there, so to say. There's no need to make an effort even to be aware. You are not like meditating on, but you are. there, whatever is the object of your meditation, whether it's Brahman, whether it's Paramatma or Bhagavan. So in terms of the three stages of realization, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and Krishna speaks a little bit about this in the Bhagavad Gita, about different types of samadhi. And the Bhagavatam, of course, also speaks about that. In fact, when Vyasadeva is chastised by his guru, Narad Muni, as we know, that he feels dissatisfied after compiling all the Vedic literatures, and Narad Muni, like usual, manifests out of the blue, sent by Krishna. That's what we meant by out of the blue. He's the blue, ultimately. So Narad Muni appears there, and there's a very interesting interaction, important section of the Bhagavatam. And interestingly, Narada instructs his disciple Vyasadeva to go into samadhi. So also that speaks about the quality of student that Vyasadeva is, because you cannot tell anyone just like, okay, go into samadhi, like if you just can go into samadhi, right? But that's the instruction he receives, and Vyasadeva follows accordingly, and he goes into samadhi. And in that samadhi, the Bhagavatam is revealed to him. He had compiled the previous edition of the Bhagavatam, with whom he was not entirely satisfied, and after being edited by his guru Narad, comes the edited version, the upgraded version of the Bhagavatam that we know now, that we call Srimad Bhagavatam, which is revealed in samadhi to Vyasadeva. Of course, the samadhi of Vyasa was a type of diversified, specified samadhi. To say in that samadhi, Vyasadeva sees Maya Shakti, then sees Bhakti Shakti, Bhagavan, the jivas entangled in Maya, all the different, again, he's not seeing there's only Brahman. No, he's not having a nirvikalpa type of samadhi. He's seeing a diversified revelation of reality in trance. So samadhi is a form of transcognitive access to reality. No, that's how we can also name it. Like you access reality beyond the usual normal filters of mind, intellect, senses, and you have like immediate access, like in the immediacy to how reality looks like. Whether it is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And this is an important point, because I know that for us, some of the most, how to say, combative of us will say, no, ultimately reality looks like Krishna Vrindavan. Anything else is not reality. No? Thanks you, Jugal Kishore. Yeah, a perception of reality as it is. Beautiful. But also Brahman and Paramatma, there are ways how reality looks as it is eternally. That's why specifically Brahman, I will say. Because Paramatma, this is an important point that I had to clarify. When we speak about samadhi, you can attain samadhi in terms of Brahman, samadhi in terms of that eternal state of merging, if you want to call it, and how is the word? And like anyhow, the word is not coming. Undifferentiated type of trance, and that can exist for eternity. So that's a perception of reality in eternality, a type of samadhi, and that's described in the scriptures. Again, it's not that we are making that up here; it's in Shastra. So that recognizes you can experience that samadhi. You can samadhi means in that case again you are absolutely have absolute access to that particular reality. You are there. There's no coming back from there. There's no falling from there, so to say. And regarding Paramatma, I wouldn't say there is an eternal reality concerning Paramatma. Paramatma has more to do with the inward witness that accompanies the jiva as long as the jiva is entangled, and whether one practices Ashtanga Yoga, which includes meditation on Paramatma, but ultimately the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is not Paramatma, because there is no eternal planet of Paramatma, so to say. So whether you practice Ashtanga Yoga with an impersonal orientation, then your goal will be Brahman, that type of samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi. And whether you practice your yoga with a personalistic conception, the goal of your yoga will be Bhagavan, for which we will say your practice of yoga at one point will have to be mixed with bhakti. Or more specifically, we'll say it's part of the system of yoga to meditate on Bhagavan. Ishvara Pranadhan. Ishvara Pranidhan is one aspect of the Ashtanga yoga system, which includes worshipping of Bhagavan. So that will take to a personalized samadhi in the context of yoga. Again, for us as bhaktas, where samadhi is a little different. Again, it does not necessarily entail all the sequential practice of Ashtanga, as it is described in Yoga Sutras, for example. Of course, it's not pointing to Brahman either, although it's acknowledging all those things. We are not here saying Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is bogus, Brahman is like whatever. It's a phantasmagoria that everyone will fall from at some point or stuff like that. No need to create any crusades with any other people outside of our group. So in bhakti, yeah, for us samadhi, again, Vyasadeva enters into samadhi and the Bhagavatam comes from samadhi. So I like to say, if the Srimad Bhagavatam is our main book and it was written in the language of samadhi, samadhi bhasha, which means the language of samadhi, the only way you will understand the Bhagavatam is by entering into samadhi yourself. You ultimately, reading the Bhagavatam is something that you will have access to in samadhi. And that's the Bhagavatam is inviting us to a type of samadhi, a type of devotional samadhi, a type of internal absorption and fixation, which ultimately has to do with divine love, of course. It's not necessarily a yogic samadhi, although there may be bhaktas with more yogic orientation. And again, there are nuances and influences in all that in one's practice and eventual attainment. But the ultimately practice of bhakti, Sankirtan, as Mahaprabhu brought it, and the different angas of bhakti, entail a gradual absorption in our particular tradition into a type of loving devotion, dedication, following to the footsteps of certain specific moods of service. And ultimately, that's samadhi. No? When we hear a description of the Brajavasis, Krishna Lila and Vrindavan, Gaur Lila, we are hearing about people in samadhi. Again, they are not maybe sitting with eyes closed. They are dancing and rolling on the ground and playing and crying and cooking. So it seems things that are not samadhi-like. But the question is, what's their inner absorption? What's their object of their thoughts and mind and hearts? And you will discover, wow, they cannot stop thinking about Krishna. Like the gopis in Vrindavan, of course, that's the ultimate yogic example for us, which is they, even when Krishna gives them a good headache, so to say, making them suffer by his crookedness and unpredictability, and the gopis may say, you know what, let's stop thinking about Krishna for a while because he's giving us a good hard time. So they make a concerted effort in trying to stop thinking about Krishna. And they try to concentrate like yogis, trying to not to think about Krishna. That's their yogic effort, and they fail miserably. So that's the level of yogis they are. No? They make the best possible effort to become absorbed in something else apart from Krishna, but they cannot do that. So they are the topmost yogis. That's what Krishna says in the conclusion of the 6th chapter of the Gita, Dhyana Yoga, right? Yogi nama pisarbisam madgatinantaratmana shradhavam bhajate jumam samayuktatamumatah. Of all yogis, of all samadhi-like guys, my bhaktas are the highest. My devotees are the most yogic of all yogis because madgatinantaratmana, their inner self is constantly abiding in me and I'm constantly abiding in them. Basically, that's what we have been talking before. Like, we have fallen in love with each other between Krishna and devotees. So that's the ultimate form of trance, falling in love in sacred love. So that's the samadhi the Bhagavatam is pointing at again. And that's why the Bhagavatam is written in samadhi. And it's pointing to a particular samadhi that culminates in the love of Vrindavan. And that's the main window of opportunity, I will say, that the Gaudiya Sampradaya offers, although there are, of course, other windows of opportunity that are also accessible in our Sampradaya, and all of them culminate in a form of samadhi. So some words about that, of course, we could continue, but I don't know if that helps, Devi.
Yes, very much. Thank you, Maharaj. I think I need to re-listen to it again. I think I already have some questions, but I don't want to take time. Maybe I can ask next week. Thank you so much.
Okay, I won't give you the instruction to go into samadhi. No, don't be concerned about that. That's it. First, I have to enter into samadhi myself before giving such an instruction what to do. Okay, thank you. We'll continue with the next question from Rasangi from New Jersey, I assume.
I am. I'm on the big wraparound Victorian house porch by the
Yeah.
Jersey Shore.
Very elegant. Yeah.
It's very lovely. Not quite as gorgeous as where you are, but it's still lovely.
Everything has its own nuance of beauty. Yeah.
And value. Maharaj, thank you again for your email response. I appreciate that so much. And my question today is something from Bhakti Ross's talk on magic.
Oh, I haven't watched that one. Sorry, but I'll try to say something.
I know great minds think alike, and that's why I'm daring to bring it up. It was so good, and I recommend everybody watch it and listen to it. And my question is, and I'm also blown away by how high we can go and then how basic we can get. I love that. I love that. We're going very high into very high areas. And then we also talk about the nitty gritty of what needs to happen here and now. So this question is about emotions. She said so many wonderful things that the magic is the transformation of bhakti into bhakti. And that she talked about emotions bringing us into the present moment. And we know that the importance of being in the moment. I talk to this with my clients even about this, to stay in the moment, stay in the moment. That's the only place we have any power to change anything from, is from each moment, right? We can't change it if we're in the past or in the future. So we want to stay in the moment. So she talked about the emotions and to enter the flow, that divine river. We have to be in touch with our feelings, our emotions. So I wondered if you would, and this is cracking the psychology code, sort of. This is so essential and important. You know, it's like really primary to that field. And I feel like you're onto something here. We're talking about something that's oftentimes overlooked and neglected, how we deal with our emotions that are quite intense sometimes. You know, there's a lot of them throughout the day, different ones. So what do you suggest? How do we deal with the emotions in order to stay in the present moment and in the flow?
You can read my chapter on individuation and radical personalism.
I mean, I've read it.
There's a whole chapter about that. I will say something.
Yeah.
But just want to make the point, actually, that to validate your question, that it's such an important topic that, I personally felt, okay, let's write the whole chapter on that because it's necessary. So, as you said, this may sound like basic topic. We have just touched upon Bhakti Samadhi and the glories of the Braj Gopika's love. And now we are going to not neglecting our emotions. But again, for me, it's all the same same thing, right? I mean, all has to be properly integrated. Because the Samadhi of the Braja Gopikas is basically based on emotion. It's based on bhava. They live in a land of emotion. So if I want to enter there, and I don't have those emotions at present, I have other emotions. So probably the way of me accessing that realm is, first of all, knowing what to do with my current emotions. And from there, eventually, of course, by properly allowing bhakti to be poured on my heart, I will gain the capacity for trans-emotional emotionality, as I like to put it. So it's not a basic topic. That's my point. No? Even if someone may like to call that basic, we can always talk about basic topics in profound ways. And many times that's the challenge. Many times we are not able to talk profoundly about anything. And many times we run up to high topics in relation to which we don't have a capacity to talk deeply either. So so it's not tasty, it's not relishable to talk superficially about whether high topics or even basic topics. So the real challenge is, as Siddhartha Maharaj will say, is to talk about basic topics in the most profound way possible. That will guarantee that we are advancing toward the higher topics in a realistic way, and we are not rushing. No? Like he will say, fools rush where angels fear to tread. So we want to be part of the angel group. Not the Hell's Angels, but the other angels. So as I say, I haven't had the time to be present or to listen after Bhaktirasa's presentation. With your promotion, Rasangi, I'm tempted to do so, so I'll probably go there. But yeah, of course, I've been talking to her before the lecture, and we have been sharing thoughts and ideas. I totally agree with the idea of being in the present moment, and it's funny because the other day I was talking about that with someone, I don't recall even who now. But sometimes the idea comes, okay, being in the present sounds a little bit like new agey or like Buddhist mindfulness or who knows what. And we quickly kind of downplay proposals that do not sound like that do not match our indoctrination. Let's put it that way. Right? Unfortunately, in some cases, we have been indoctrinated with certain lingo, certain words. So if I say something with a different word, it already seems like that's not part of my lineage. That's not. But actually, that's absolutely part of our lineage, to be in the present moment, to witness what's going on. For example, and I'm going to the Bhagavatam, and there's nothing more Gaudiya Vaishnav than the Bhagavatam. And in the Bhagavatam, you will find a dissertation on this notion of Shakshitva. Shakshitva. Shakshi means witness, like Shakshi Gopal and so on. And Shakshitva means like witnesshood, so to say. No, the twa in Sanskrit will be like the hood or like the ness in English. No, like witnessness. I cannot say that. So witnesshood. So there's a whole elaboration on that in the Bhagavatam, and about the quality of being witness, to witnessing what's happening around you, to being in the present moment. Actually, sattva, the word sattva, means that. Sat means being, and twa, again, twa means ness. So beingness. Sattva is the quality of beingness, the capacity of being where you are, whenever you are, and being in contact, and here it comes, being in contact with your emotions, being in contact even where your bodily, your body language, your body is trying to tell you something many times. No? Your body's, I don't know, the heart is palpitating more strongly, or you got like, I don't know, tense. I mean, you see that so many times. So you have to pay attention to that. What's the message there? So for that, you have to be present in the present moment. That's what sattva is about. Rajas is more about mind going shopping into the future, and tamas is mind going to the past in toxic nostalgia, so to say. And present is sattva. And shakshitva means to witness, to observe. Observe doesn't mean I become absolutely entangled and identified with whatever is happening, but I'm present to that. So let's say I'm here with you. Well, not now. I'm trying to be present for you now. But let's say this conversation ends and I feel some emotion, and the emotion goes to some very strange place. So I don't need to follow the place that my emotion wants to take me, of extreme anger, let's say. Hopefully not, but you never know. But I can notice that happening. No, the fact that I won't become extremely angry and start throwing chairs at people from the Swiss Alps here doesn't mean that I will absolutely deny and repress and cancel that upsurge that is coming. So I can acknowledge it, I can accept it, I can be present to that, and I can try to see what's behind there. What's the necessity behind that? Because when there's anger is not the root cause of anything. There's something behind that. Why I'm angry? No, maybe I have a need that is not being satisfied and I'm frustrated, or I feel ashamed and I'm fearful. Who knows? I'm just talking in general. So all this in connection to your point, and of course, again, there's a whole chapter over there about it in radical personalism, but emotions, no matter how non-samadhi like they may be so far, again, comes this part, because we may think, okay, if you don't have the topmost emotions, they're all Maya, you should be ashamed of that, you should deny. No, nobody's saying you shouldn't do that. You should acknowledge where you are and act accordingly. Try to understand from which place this emotion is coming. Try to sit, as I put in the book, try to sit with your emotions instead of sitting on your emotions. Try to have a conversation with that. What's happening? Allow your humanness. Many times our emotions will take us to very vulnerable places, to very fragile places, to places many times of brokenness and messiness. And many times we don't want to allow that to happen. We are afraid of going in those directions for different reasons. Again, I'm not giving here one specific unique narrative about why, but many times we think that if we acknowledge those things, we will be ashamed, we will be a mess, we don't want to see our fragility, because still, again, we are very much convinced that nobody loves us unconditionally. So we are in this whole exhausting struggle of performing and playing perfectionism, and that's so exhausting. Perfectionism is so much tied, and I remember, Anutam Chitra also gave her talk on shame. That's very connected. Perfectionism is so linked to shame. That's a recipe. One is just a vicious circle. So our emotions need to be embraced. If I'm in my present stage as a sadhaka, I'm battling against emotions. I'm labeling them as good, bad, and I just allowing the good and the bad are just sending them to the shed, so to say, to the bin, trash bin. I'm not walking the path that will eventually lead me to a world of emotions, that is the spiritual world, so to say. So Krishna is welcoming us. That's again, sorry if I'm going back to that, but I'm writing about that these days. So that's the overarching theme these days. Krishna accepted us already as we are. It's so difficult for us to accept that. It's so difficult for us to accept that we are already accepted. It's very difficult. We are in a trance. I'm reading a book that the author is talking about the trance of unworthiness. Imagine that expression. We were talking about samadhi, right? A few minutes ago. Here comes another samadhi, the trance of unworthiness. So you are so much into that trance that you don't know that you are into that trance, because you are in the trance. You don't see anything outside of the trance. That's what trance means, absolute absorption. But this one is a trance of unworthiness. So no matter what I do, I feel, I don't do, I don't feel, I keep being unworthy. I can be not enough, not good enough. And that's an exhausting battle and a struggle to perform, to become more perfect. So someday, which will never come through that overview perspective, someday someone will love me, someone will like me, Krishna will accept me, whatever is the narrative. So yeah, I think that's a very important point to have in place, to allow emotions to happen. To allow emotions to happen, well, knowing that, I'm not those emotions also. Many of those emotions are just unresolved trauma that is getting triggered in certain situations, and I shouldn't condemn myself for that. Again, I should learn to even love myself in the form of self-compassion. A few days ago in the conversation with Mahatma Prabhu we had in the podcast, we were talking about Krishna saying the Gita, the soul is Ascharya, right? The soul is wonderful. And the commentary was, yes, the soul is wonderful, but we should make a difference between the soul and our acquired self, so to say, our sense of self, our personality, which is full of stuff that is not very wonderful sometimes. So the soul should be loved, self-love. Again, we were talking about self-love, but we shouldn't love the non-wonderful stuff. that was the commentary. And I was thinking, no, we should love that also from a place of compassion and from a place of acceptance. No, accepting that that's happening. I'm not saying I'm promoting that as the goal and fostering that as much as we can, but I don't win anything by hating that. I don't win anything by rejecting that, by suppressing that, because I'm not supposed to love that. So I think we should find inventive, creative ways of dealing with our emotional realms. So we enter in touch with our emotions. We honor them, so to say. We welcome them. We pay attention. We learn from them. You have to learn something from that, whatever the emotion that may be. There, Krishna says in the Gita, no? What do you gain by repression? He's making that rhetorical question, right? Implying nothing. Nothing. That's the Bhagavad Gita. So not repress means basically to express in one way or another. Again, I'm not saying you have to play out your anger to the full degree. Now I'm expressing my emotions and you become like a social threat. But on some level, you have to recognize what's going on and then do something about it. So a few words, simple, basic, but I hope they make any sense. And for more elaboration, see chapter whatever, chapter 9, I think, Radical Person.
I'll read it again. I'll read it again. It was very helpful, though. It's one of those things, like you say, like that I'm unconditionally loved. It needs to be reminded again and again and again. Kind of, we need to go over it and over it until we really get it, I guess. So thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, because if I fully enter the space of being unconditionally loved by Krishna or someone else, and I'm in a relationship, like, I won't be afraid of feeling anything. I won't be afraid of showing anything because I'm already loved. I'm already accepted. And many times the underlying fear is if other people see what I'm really feeling, what I'm really thinking, I will be rejected. I won't belong. I will be ostracized, whatever. So there is this underlying fear in a very subconscious, many times secret corner that we may not even recognize. So we need to recognize that. And that's part of allowing our emotions. Allowing our emotions implies allowing ourselves to recognize how fearful we are of people seeing us with our emotions and how much we still think that we are not lovable, that we are unworthy, and that we have to play perfect in order to be accepted. So we need to dismantle that false myth one way or another. And a part of that is allowing our emotions to come and reminding ourselves, yes, I'm already part of that. I'm already accepted. I already belonged. And that requires a training. It's a rewiring of your neural pathways, so to say. Because for lifetime, for eons, we have received the opposite message. So you need to literally brainwash yourself. No? It's a brainwashing technique that we're sharing here. The good brainwashing, of course.
And Maharaj, I feel like I'm learning a lot about this from some of my Christian friends who really feel loved. Many of them feel like they're accepted and cleansed clean by the love of God. I love that. And I'm striving to feel that belonging and that I'm yours and you're mine.
Yeah. And there are so many sections in our tradition also speaking about that. Now that I'm writing on that and I'm trying to like compile and do research, so many sections. But again, the most surprising thing is why we never pick on them, why we never find them, why we skip them unconsciously. Why that's not like taking us like, oh yeah, again. So that's something in itself. Anyhow, thank you, Rasenga. Next question will go to Nitai Lila from Alachua.
Hare Krishna. I have a question regarding this. I have a hard time with the way we use the word godbrother or godsister in ISKCON.
Okay.
And I mean, I was just curious, like, I'm not. I don't know how the other Gaudiya groups do they use this term, But to me, it seems like the way we use it in ISKCON creates a lot of division, because we only have that, it relates to people who are initiated by the same guru, and we have so many different gurus, and we have no other terminology that explains, or that explains our relationships with the others. And I don't think it's anybody's intention, but at least that's been my experience for all the years that I've been in ISKCON. I feel like it doesn't foster the sense of unity, especially because we use it so much. And when we're in a group setting where there's so many different devotees co-initiated by different gurus, and we'll specify, like, for example, if I'm in a study group, Bhagavad Gita study group, and a devotee who is leading the group is calling on other devotees to read, and so everybody else is called by the name, but when it's turned for a godbrother or godsister to read, it will be my dear godsister, so and so. And so it just doesn't seem right. Like, for me, first of all, I feel like it shouldn't relate only to those who are initiated, who are initiated by the same guru, because Srila Prabhupada is everybody's param guru, and there's all of that. But I don't know, it's just, I was wondering, is it something, I don't know if I'm too sensitive, but to me it seems like we are generally, like, at large, we're a bunch of cliques, and there's not so much of a sense of unity. And I feel that the vocabulary, the terms that we use, contribute to that. So anyway, it's just a question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your point. I agree with your concern. The language can be, as we have talked many times, language can be, it's not a superficial consideration. The words we use craft our experience. So, and we may not be aware of that. And we may be using words like, I'm sure that many of the devotees you are referring to, they are not having a bad intention as, okay, let's create division among us by using this word. But it happens, no, to you and probably to some others. And it's not bad intention. It's not a bad word in itself, but what it creates in time, maybe in the beginning, also happens with words. At one time, it had a certain meaning and implication, and after years and decades, certain words starts to acquire a different connotation and a different context, start to mean something else to people. That requires a whole study into itself, but but yeah, even words that, again, and I'm not here like to criticize how we end up using words, but sometimes we use words in ways that are not like entirely accurate, so to say. And like, for example, they would say, okay, we'll go for Harinam, but that's not correct, right? Harinam is the name of Hari. We should say, we will go for Nagar Sankirtan, congregational chanting in the streets. Harinam is the name of Hari. We'll go for the name of Hari. Of course, yes, but expression is like, you follow my point, no? So again, that's not something harmful, I will say, but maybe in times the word Harinam only means that for us, and the original intended meaning of the word gets out of our scope. Or like devotees that I know that may use the word Sankirtan for book distribution almost entirely. So when I speak of, they lose sight that Sankirtan means something else. And book distribution can be an extension of Sankirtan. I have nothing against that, but it all depends on the spirit. So anyhow, regarding your question, God brother, God sister, I wouldn't say it's only an ISKCON phenomenon, but also I will say probably it's mostly an ISKCON phenomenon, especially considered by comparison with other Gaudiya Sanghas. In ISKCON, there are so many gurus. And with this, I'm not criticizing that. I'm just making an objective point. In other Gaudiya Sanghas, many times there's only one guru. So everyone is God brother and God sister in that sense. Or there are a few, anyhow. And I cannot talk definitely conclusively about how each Gaudiya Sangha deals with this particular subject. But I agree that maybe it may be more healthy to, I mean, ultimately we are all God brothers and God sister. The very expression says God brother. No, you are using the word God, brother, God sister. In other words, God is our father. No, Krishna says in the Gita, Aham bija pradapita. I am the father who gives the seed. So he's the universal father, and the Vedas say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There's only one family. So if there's only one family, because there's one universal father, following the analogy, we are all part of the same family, and therefore we are all brothers and sisters. We are all God brothers. We are all God sisters. I know that the term originally was meant to describe those initiated by a particular guru, but I agree with your concern and with the idea. If someone would like to write a whole letter presenting this new proposal, I won't. I'm already dealing with some others, enough stuff myself, but I have no problem in supporting that. And of course, it cannot be something imposed, like from now on, nobody else can do that because that's creating division in our group. It becomes another form of imposition, but at least talking about the subject matter and even relating yourself with other people in those terms. I mean, I many times like to use, and I don't want to put myself as an example, but just how it feels natural for me. I use the word brothers and sisters. For me, all of you are my brothers and sisters. And we are not connected with the same specific line of gurus and disciples, so to say. I mean, in many of your cases, I don't even know who is your guru. And I don't care in one sense, right? I mean, I care for you as a person, and I trust that eventually I may get to know that or not, but I'm not filtering my relationship with you according to who is your guru, so to say. So I think it's healthy when one can start to introduce those types of expression when dealing with other Vaishnavas in open groups, like my brother, my sister, and someone may ask, but why you say brother and sister? He's not the disciple of your guru. Yeah, but we are brothers, and you try to bring a wider perspective, basically. So yeah, I think that's healthy. Or again, another way is just to, of course, we can call each other by the name. And even if you are my God brother and God sister, I don't need to clarify my dear God brother, so and so. I just call you by the name. And if you're my dear God brother, I will express how dear you are by how we are relating to each other. No, I don't need to make a whole title, public title, so to say. So those are my thoughts. So basically, I agree with your concern and proposal. And at least from my part and here in our Tadatmya Sangha, we are naturally, without even, to be honest, I never thought about in the way you have thought about your concern, which is valid, but I never thought in that way. But naturally, I I relate to people in that way because it feels correct, right? To consider all of you as my brothers and my sisters and my friends. No, it feels more spacious, more generous, more loving, and more free of boundaries and labels and boxes. Like, I mean, anyhow, thank you for the question and the concern. Many times having a proper concern is the beginning of whatever change we need to implement. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to Swetadvip Radhika from Ireland.
Pranams, Maharaj. First of all, I wanted to say that I really liked the connection you made with Out of the Blue. Never heard it. So good.
Yeah. That came in the past, but yeah, it came. Yeah.
One thing to remember, Krishna. Yeah, my question. So recently we were speaking with some friends, and they were sharing some like difficult circumstances they've been through recently, and they mentioned something about like how it being a test from Krishna, you know, and
What? Sorry.
how the difficult circumstances is like a test from Krishna, like Krishna is testing us through these difficult situations. I mean, like I don't hear it so often anymore, but I've heard in the past, and also, you know, something like, oh, when we are dying, it's a test, like, if we remember Krishna or something like that. But somehow, like, I can't really relate to that, or I can't believe it, because to me, it seems like, I mean, Krishna is loving us unconditionally. And I'm thinking, if I love someone I love, like, is putting me through some difficult situation and saying, oh, that was just to test you or something, I wouldn't like it, So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Again, yeah, we are back to this thing of language, right? Or expressions we may use in our tradition, and which sometimes do not have a shastric background, but somehow they end up being part of our lingo. So something happens and, oh, that's Krishna testing you, or whatever. No, I agree with you, Swetadev Radhika. I don't, at least not, I don't agree with the idea that Krishna is testing us, at least in the form of how does it sound to us that he's testing us? No? So what do I mean by that? As you mentioned, okay, Krishna loves you unconditionally. So he's not that he's testing you to see, okay, let's see, he fails, he doesn't fail, he passed the test. Oh, he failed miserably. Sorry. Hopefully you make it next test or something like that. But at the same time, I will say that there is place for a testing, not a testing from the place I'm just described, but a testing that comes from unconditional love in terms of trying to invite us to a particular situation that Krishna knows is the best for us, and that's what we need to go through. No? But it's coming out of love. It's not coming out of anything apart from that. So I will say that's also part, because, and that's part of a bigger conversation. And I'm seeing there are like 26 messages in the chat. Sorry, but I cannot keep up with 2 conversations at the same time. And also I will ask you, of course, you can share whatever you want, but let's try not to keep like a whole parallel conversation ongoing, because that may be a little distracting. Of course, you are welcome to share whatever you want, but at least for me, I won't be able to go there because it's too much. So there's part of the bigger conversation in terms of, okay, what's the role of Krishna's, how much Krishna can intervene in our lives? How much do I have free will? How much Krishna can do whatever he wants? How much Krishna, all that happens is Krishna testing me, and it has nothing to do with me and my actions and my previous actions and the way I perceive things out of my previous act. So which is the proportion of all the things? Because sometimes we may be very loose in the way we talk about the things, and we may say like, okay, Krishna controls, or Krishna's making the arrangement, or Krishna, and somehow we are ascribing Krishna absolute control, and the implication of that is we have no free will anymore. It's a long conversation, of course, and I've been thinking about that, and I will be writing about that as well. But for example, and I will be brief, and recently there was a reel shared, but I think that was on, I don't know if it was on Krishna's omnipotence, but sometimes we may say, okay, Krishna is omnipotent. And I will be quick to ask, what do you mean by that? Because if you mean that Krishna is omnipotent, he can do whatever he likes at any point of time, that's problematic. So that means that he can do anything and absolutely anything, because that's what it means, omnipotent. He can do anything and everything at any given moment. Do you think that's possible? Do you think that Krishna can stop being Krishna, for example, if he will like? Do you think that Krishna could burn all the Brajavasis and destroy Vaikuntha planets? No, he cannot do that. Do you think that Krishna can become selfish? He cannot do that. So there are lots of things that Krishna cannot do. So Krishna is not omnipotent. At least not in the way, or if you feel Krishna can do anything he likes with me and interrupt my life and cancel all my decisions and stop my existence as a soul. So do we have free will then? Do we have any choice in the matter if he can at any moment interrupt and do whatever he wants and we have no word at all? Is that loving? Is that inviting to a reciprocal relationship of voluntary decision? Because love is a voluntary decision. If not, that makes no sense. It's not so loving. So I'm just bringing these general themes to the table because they are somehow related, although it's, again, a big conversation. So when we say Krishna is testing us, of course, Krishna is a person, supreme person. He has free will. He really has free will. We have free will, but how free is our will? That's a different thing. We cannot compare our will with Krishna's. But my point is, if we are trying to develop a relationship with God, of course, it's interactive, it's reciprocal. So, of course, he will have his own presence in our life, especially if we are inviting him to do so, right? I mean, Krishna is very respectful and very shy. That's one of his 64 attributes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishna is shy. No, he has other attributes which are the opposite of that, so to say. But those have more to do when we invite him to our life. But if we are not doing that, he's very reserved. He's very honoring of our individuality. So, but if we are inviting him to our lives, if we want inviting him to a relationship, we want to surrender to his will, so to say, if we want to please him, if we want to grow in love, he will also intervene in our lives. He will exert influence in our existence. That's part of a relationship with someone. The other person is influencing your life. It's not that because your wife, let's say, is influencing your life, she cancels your free will. No. But the fact that you have free will doesn't cancel your wife's influence in your life. The two of them are happening at the same time. There are many things happening at the same time. It's not just what's the only one thing happening. Life is not that simplistic. That's why Krishna, when he describes the factors involved in an action, he describes so many things. He's not saying one thing. It's not about you. It's all about God. It's all about karma. It's all about this, and all that is playing out in that simultaneously. So again, my point is, Krishna may be testing us in which sense? Again, from a place of love, of unconditional, like a father may be testing the child, but not testing because I doubt you love me or I will want it, but just I may try to create some particular dynamics that will be challenging for you. Maybe that's a better word, because maybe test may trigger something else. And that challenge, if properly embraced with sincerity, will bring us closer to God, will make us learn new lessons, will make us grow and mature. So in that sense, Krishna's love, Krishna's unconditional love, will be, in fact, expressed by him trying to create those circumstances. I like to give recently, and you will see that in our next podcast, will happen like in 2 weeks. I had a podcast with a rabbi, very interesting conversation, Bradley Artson, and he has this very simple but interesting example of the GPS, which of course is familiar for everyone now. And he will say, like, when you're driving in a GPS, the GPS say turn right, and the GPS is right, and you turn left. So what does the GPS do? Recalculating. So the GPS starts to immediately think of the best possible option according to your worst possible choice you made 1 minute ago. You follow? You make your worst possible choice, and the GPS recalculates the best possible scenario according to what you need, given the worst possible choice you just made. So he will say, God is like that. No? We choose in the wrong direction, so to say, and his presence and influence and relationality is always trying to create proper influence, persuasive, not coercive. That's the language sometimes it's used. Now, God's influence is persuasive, not coercive. So it's trying to create the best possible influence according to what we need at any given time, given our past decisions or even mistakes. So from that place, we could say, part of that unconditional love and influence that Krishna is trying to provide in his unconditional love is to invoke those scenarios, to invite us to certain challenges. But that's not a test in the unloving way we may generally think of that. So I don't know if that makes any sense to Radhika. What do you think?
Yes, Maharaj, it's really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
And again, we have our will. We may act in certain way, and that will attract certain reactions if we want to talk in terms of karma. But again, it's not that it's all that. No, it's all limited to what I do. What's the reaction to what I do, and whatever comes is what I've done. There's also Krishna in the picture, so he's also present in that. But it's not only him. Again, it's also us. So we have to understand that it's a relationship, right? So in a relationship, if we are open to a relationship, there will be influence going back and forth from both places. And Krishna himself is influenced by his devotee. It's not that he's only influencing us. Again, it's reciprocal. Krishna is the most sensitive person, so it's a back and forth. Yeah. I will say it's healthy to think in whatever situation. Let's say, of course, we are in any given situation in life, and the first stance recommended, no? Srila Sridhar Maharaj will say that, explaining the famous verse from the Bhagavatam, Tatenu Kampan Sushamik Shamano, etc. Like, try to, he will say in a language that may sound strong for some, he say, here you have a solution for all your problems in life. Blame yourself and nobody else. And with this, he's not speaking about toxic shame and guilt, but his language implies take responsibility for whatever is coming to your life. No, do not fall into the game of blaming other people, because that's a very typical mechanism. Sometimes whom to blame for what's happening to me. But ultimately, what's happening to me has to do with how I'm filtering the experience inside. It's not necessarily what's going on outside. So my point is, something happens to us, and we take personal responsibility. For some reason, I'm here, and on top of that, I have this faith, trust, and confidence that Krishna is with me in this moment, trying to accompany and create the most blessed, auspicious influence for me to learn the lesson I need to learn in this particular situation. So that's a way that I think is very healthy in these both sides. One, me taking responsibility for whatever I need to take responsibility, but that doesn't cancel Krishna's loving presence and his concern of creating the most favorable recalculation, so to say, for us to grow and get closer to him. And trying to integrate these two, I think, is very important. Okay, thank you so much, Sveta Radhika. We have 3 more hands raised. Let's see if we have the time. I hope so. And also, I'm running out of battery, and I don't have a cable here because I'm a little far away from the plug. Let's see how much I may need to run and do something about it. Jugal Kishore. Yes.
Haribol. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Maharaj. It's been very substantive conversation so far this morning. And I hate to take up any time on this question if there's other more pertinent questions.
No, please.
But you were doing such a great job of explaining, I think, for me, this difference in the first question, the difference between the 3 moments or modes of the absolute Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan. And there was a question that came up in the chat in regards to Paramatma. I think maybe more could be said, but the question was from Mandakini, and she was asking about, is this sort of a transitional stage, since you were suggesting that it's not really an eternal moment, that Paramatma realization doesn't continue eternally. And it kind of brought this, I had a little bit of a realization that, like, in terms of unconditional love, that this one here is where, like, maybe it's a moment of Paramatma when you can accept and realize that this person here is also worthy of unconditional love. Not just everything is worthy of unconditional love. Krishna, the Supreme Person, is worthy and is giving me the ability to be worthy of unconditional love. And then also this one, and this one, and this one. So I don't know, that kind of just came to me. But maybe you could say something more about the eternality or lack thereof of Paramatma realization.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's an interesting topic unto itself. Because again, of course, in one sense, we could say Paramatma is eternal because it's one of the three aspects of the divine, and they exist eternally in one way or not. They may not be eternally with me as a realization, but it doesn't mean that they stop existing or something. Paramatma, as we mentioned, is an aspect of God that exists in everyone's heart, and by extension, also it is described in the scripture in every atom, even. Interestingly, these days, also researching for my book, there's one section in the Bhagavatam that says there are in the 6th canto, there are as many living entities as there are atoms. So that's interesting, because I thought, well, maybe that's speaking about how the ultimate living entity, Paramatma, God, is in every atom. It's another way of saying there is a living entity in every atom. So my point is that Paramatma is a feature of God that resides in every pore of material creation. Paramatma, according to Jiva Goswami, his Paramatma Sandarbha, he wrote the whole treatise on Paramatma. And he describes how Paramatma is a feature of the Godhead, ruling, if you want to use that expression, over Jiva Tattva and Maya Tattva, Jiva Shakti and Maya Shakti. So is God in connection to matter, material energy, and the souls that are under the influence of material energy, not the souls under the influence of bhakti. When the soul puts himself, herself under the influence of bhakti, Bhagavan is the feature. One form or another, there are different forms of Bhagavan. So, but of course, there are always jivas under the influence of matter, and there's always material energy existing. So, of course, Paramatma exists eternally in that sense. No? In every atom, in every heart, and so on. And I agree with your point of one interesting way of saying Paramatma, speaking about Paramatma realization for us, is to relate to everything as if God is present there, because He is in every heart, in every atom. Although it may be a little overwhelming if you try to, in practical terms, if I start to relate to every atom of this computer and table, and I will stop giving class now. I will go into another direction. But it's interesting to enter into those spaces. So yeah, for a devotee, for example, because sometimes devotees use this expression of Paramatma in their hearts. And again, Paramatma can be a word for Krishna. Again, depending how you use the word, it will refer to something. Paramatma means the super soul or supreme soul. So Paramatma is another name for God, for Krishna. And again, Paramatma, Brahman, and Bhagavan, and we can never emphasize this enough, they are not three different people, right? Let me put it that way. Sometimes I joke with devotees, the Das Avatar, Nrsimhadev, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Vamandev, Krishna, Balaram, Buddha, Kalki, they are not different guys. They are the same person. But do we see like that? Ask yourself, how do you relate to those phases of the Absolute, like the same non-dual person expressing itself in a multi-varied form, or we are relating to them in polytheistic terms, like different gods? So the same can happen because with Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, we may relate to all of them separately. Why? Because still in our minds there is so much dualism, so much separatedness. So when we are hearing that these are one substance, this is the Bhagavatam, Advaya Gyan Tattva, the Bhagavatam says, the absolute reality is non-dual consciousness. And it's called Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. That's interesting. It says, the absolute reality, Badanti Tattva Vidas, Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabditi. The supreme reality is one, non-dual consciousness, and it's known with these three names, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But there's one. So I'm saying this because when we speak about Paramatma and we speak about Krishna, there is a Veda, difference, but there is a Veda, non-difference. So for a devotee, my point is, before one embraces bhakti, let's put it that way, Paramatma is in your heart. Once you embrace bhakti, Krishna is in your heart. It's the same person, but Paramatma is God in the heart that is devoid of bhakti. Krishna is God in the heart where bhakti is present. Let's put it that way. In part, my first book is a lot about this topic, right? Bhakti in the jiva. So in our particular tradition, again, an example I always give is that of Hanuman, right? This famous image of Hanuman opening his chest. He has no Paramatma. No? Who is there? Sitaram. His Istadev, his worshipable Lord and Goddess. There's no Paramatma. He has no Paramatma. Because again, Paramatma is in the hearts where bhakti is not there, where there is not that particular type of relationship. So Paramatma is a more generic form of God, which still is in every atom, in every heart, which still is well-wishing and conditionally loving. I'm not denying any of that. But it's comparatively more passive. Because why? Because we don't care for a relationship with. When we care for that, Paramatma shows up as Bhagavan. And reciprocates accordingly. That famous verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking how he reciprocates with those who approach him. For those who do not approach him, he's in every heart as Paramatma, loving everyone unconditionally, trying to make the best recalculating adjustments that we made. But love is voluntary, so Krishna is still waiting for us to catch the breadcrumbs he's trying to give us. So that will be basically the situation or the role of Paramatma, so to say, for how long Paramatma is there in one's heart, and when it is quote unquote replaced by Bhagavan. Again, they are the same person, showing different faces according to our approach and the relationality, basically. So I hope that helps you, Kishore. For more whole treatise on that, Paramatma Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. Thank you. Okay, I'm having what, 32%. Still, I think I'll be able to address the last two questions. So please, Bhadra, welcome.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, everybody. I'm happy if we are short on time. I'm happy to let Yudhishthira Das
Please,
go.
we have time for the two of you, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Well, practically everyone who speaks causes another question to come up in my mind, but I'll be honored if I can just ask one.
Okay.
And it's about people in the world today, non-bhakti people. In recent years, especially since what we refer to as COVID, I've been going out into the world in a sort of like a capacity of not preaching directly, but making friends with people. Just sort of putting down my Hare Krishna barrier, if you like, and connecting with people where they are at, and finding it as a very effective way of really connecting with people and feeling them, getting to know them. And I don't consider this to be asat sangha, you know, how it said we're not to associate with people who aren't interested in bhakti. Well, for me, that's taken the definition of, by all means, I mean, how are we going to bring the souls to bhakti if we don't connect with them and show them love on their level? So, but the sacred part of me and Krishna, I keep that within my heart and don't let that be influenced by any of their stuff or their mentality, but rather and I find that this way of being with people causes them to manifest their highest being, you know, the highest position in the modes that they may be. And yeah, a very nice way of helping connect with souls. And I'm finding that a lot of people, a reasonable percentage, I wouldn't put a percentage on it, but I'm sure that everybody who is growing is noticing that out in the world there are people who themselves are growing. It's like they recognize that there is something divine that's superior to them and in control, even though it may be in many minds it may be an impersonal idea, but they're recognizing, almost like seeing their own anatas, and they're wanting to better themselves and notice their jealousy and notice their envy and notice their resentments and their fears and address these things, and like conscious parenting and conscious communication. All these things are quite sort of like a wave of growth that's happening in the world. And I have this theory, and I'd like your comment on this, that because it's Kali-yuga and nothing good happens in Kali, it's the age of degeneration and destruction and downwardness. So what is this? What's causing this wave? Even though there are terrible things happening in the world, but there's also many wondrous things happening on the metaphysical level. And I have a theory, I have a feeling that it's like the undercurrent of Mahaprabhu's influence that's causing this. And yes, I'd just like your comment on that, please.
Thank you. Yeah, basically I agree with you on the idea that there are good things happening in Kali Yuga. I wouldn't be so reductionistic as to say that nothing good happens in Kali Yuga. Of course, reading some of the descriptions in the 12th canto may one think like that, that we are heading towards absolute apocalypses. And of course, there are things in the world that could make us think like that. I mean, we as human beings have developed the capacity to basically make the whole race and planet go extinct by just pressing a button called atomic bomb. So the potential is there. In potential, we press a few buttons and we are gone. The whole species, the whole planet, everything is gone. So we have reached that level of potential self-destruction. So in that sense, we are on the edge of apocalypses. But of course, at the same time, and as a natural, I would say, response to that, because not everyone is in that mood, as a natural response to that, to such a contrast, to such an extreme level of sense of separateness and polarized thinking, naturally, so those who do not go in that particular direction may become more and more, how to say, committed to a different lifestyle. And that's why we see different waves of people, as you mentioned, making very interesting contributions and having very deep experiences and coming with very, how to say, blessed proposals. I personally will not limit that to Mahaprabhu's dispensation. Of course, I will not deny that Mahaprabhu's presence and Kali-yuga, Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan is creating a very powerful influence throughout the whole world and beyond. But I also will be careful of just not explaining that uniquely limited to that, no? Because there are so many, how to say, so many saintly people, let's say, or so many sincere people. Saintly, if we take sadhu as a synonymous with someone honest, so many honest people with integrity and authenticity in other traditions, doing wonderful things that are making a difference in the world. So I wouldn't just say all good that is happening in planet Earth is exclusively boils down to Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan, because for me that's like risky in terms of sounding or being a little bit too narrow-minded or even fanatical. But I'm not denying the influence of Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan. I just don't want to limit the whole positive content of Kali Yuga to that. So I will explain that Kali Yuga is, in one sense, the worst age. if you choose to live Kali-yuga from a certain particular place. You follow? I mean, if you want to degrade yourself and develop a sense of separateness and isolation and all the stuff that we're seeing nowadays, meaninglessness and purposelessness, Kali-yuga is the best age to go deeper into that hole, so to say. And in that sense, it's the worst age. There's that level of potential, of dark potential in Kali-yuga. That said, if you want to connect with spirituality in so many important ways, we could make a case to say Kali-yuga is the best age. At least from our Gaudiya perspective, we will speak of Kali-yuga as the best age, with Mahaprabhu coming and presenting what he presented. And sometimes the term uses Dhanya Kali. Dhanya means like fortunate. So it's a very fortunate Kali-yuga. So there is a place to make the case that Kali-yuga is the worst or Kali-yuga is the best. And the Bhagavatam itself, in the context of describing how terrible Kali-yuga is, will make this point in different ways. Kaler dosha nide rajam asti ek mahaguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param brajet. Like it's saying Kali-yuga is an ocean of faults, which that's the apocalyptic side. But it has one big quality, and it says that by engaging in Harinam Sankirtan, one can attain freedom from all negativity and the supreme positive goal in life. And there are other sections in the Bhagavatam where it's saying Kali-yuga is desired by great sages, is praised by great personalities. So the 12th canto makes this interesting like tension and contrast, describing how terrible Kali-yuga is, and then showing how terribly great it can be if we choose to live Kali-yuga, inhabit this quality of time called Kali-yuga in a certain particular way. But again, I wouldn't limit that to, that means joining the Sankirtan movement of Mahaprabhu. Because if you don't do that, you are then contributing to world destruction or something like that. It doesn't mean that. Because I will say that an extension of Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan is any genuine spiritual path that is worshiping God, proposing the ideal of divine love, of proper service and dedication, how much you can separate those values from Sankirtan of Mahaprabhu, because Sankirtan of Mahaprabhu includes all those things as well. So I will see all these other whatever movements or traditions or people making this positive impact in Kali-yuga as somehow or other representing partially, fully, whatever, all the values that also are included in Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan. So that's how I will try to explain to myself how to harmonize this idea that we see this contrasting presence of extreme self-destruction and dualism and conflict and polarized thinking and all this stuff in Kali-yuga, and at the same time all these newer waves raising of people making such an incredible contribution. It's a natural tendency of men instinctively to counteract the darkness and the negativity. Naturally, it's pushing us, for those who will like to be in the liked side, pushing us to make a better and better contribution. So yeah, those will be some words that come to me now in that connection. So somehow
Thank
it's of
you.
course connected with your theory, not just making that point that let's just be careful not to reduce and limit everything to everything auspicious to our own religion, so to say.
Yes, I agree entirely with what you say, and I'm not sure if I made it clear in my question.
No, it was clear. It was clear.
I'm not meaning to limit it to the only manifestation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, but that bhakti is appearing in many places outside of our particular culture. Yes. So thank you. That's very clarifying.
Thank you. Okay, we will go to one last question by Yudhishthira Prabhu. I still have 26%, so we can still do it. Welcome, Yudhishthira Prabhu. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for, since I'm relatively new to this group, and just say how special this is, having experienced many different groups. So I hope you each grow in your appreciation. Hare Krishna.
Thanks.
Maharaj, I wanted to speak to you about how you mentioned just now how you cope, sort of, and balance things out in terms of sectarianism versus, the full broad vision that everything comes from one source and we're all connected. So one example is, I live in Texas, and there's a lot, although I travel internationally, there are a lot of fundamentalist Christians here. And one can ask, it would be the same way with a fundamentalist Gaudiya Vaishnava, I guess, in some extent. And one could ask, well, if everyone's going to hell who doesn't surrender to Jesus, then what about all the souls before Jesus appeared 2,000 years ago? So there are all these arguments, and like Bhadradasi, when she spoke about words come out in our language based on our conditioning, I guess is what I want to say. So when we use the word devotee, for example, you mentioned once that the guru is serving the potential of the disciple. I believe that came from one of the things that you shared. And time is the question that I want to speak about, or would like to have you speak about. So the time factor is that we know that time is temporary, it doesn't really exist. The time factor is the illusory energy at work for us. And correct me if I'm saying anything wrong. So I'm starting to find that it helps me very much to, throughout the day, just recognize that time does not exist. And it helps me to see each person with greater appreciation, each, not just human being, but all souls and all energy around us, in the form of its eternal nature, the idea of seeing with equal vision, samadarshana. So can you just maybe share, if you care, to do that, some of your internal workings to maintain that non-judgmental discernment for an association, who we associate with, but non-judgmental in terms of how we view all souls around us?
Okay, thank you.
I hope that's clear.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You let me know according to my answer if I understood correctly the question. So
if I understood the question, I'd be better off too.
So first of all, I have two things, one regarding time, and then you are asking about non-judgmental discernment in terms of association. So I will personally do not say that time does not exist, in the sense of Krishna, to begin with, says in the Bhagavad Gita, Kalo Asmi. He says, I am time. So if Krishna is time and time does not exist, then means Krishna does not exist, and that will be a complicated conclusion for me. I understand your point of relating time or material passing of time with material energy, and sometimes we translate material energy as illusion, and therefore if it's illusory, it doesn't exist. That sometimes is the sequence, but actually illusion exists. It's not that it doesn't exist. What we perceive through illusion does not exist, but illusion as an energy, as an influence, is real. Now, Maya Shakti, let's call about Maya Shakti as the illusory potency. Sometimes we can address it from that place. Maya is the illusory potency, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because it's an illusory potency. But what we experience through the effects of illusion, that's not true. No, like for example, I perceive through the effects of Maya that I am the center of reality and everything revolves around me. Sorry, Swami Padmanabha, that's not happening. No, that's my hallucination. No, it's not real. It's not factual. It seems it's real. That's how Maya is described sometimes. It seems it's real, but it's not. Almost real, but it never happens. So, but the energy in itself is real. The effect, the perception through the influence is not real. So in the same way, time is real. How we perceive time through the filter of illusion, let's put it that way. That's what's not real. So I will make the difference. And also I will add to that that there's also eternal time, eternal passing of time, as paradoxical as that may sound. In one sense, when we speak about Vaikuntha or spiritual world, we will say, okay, we are beyond time and space. Yes and no. We are beyond time and space as we conceive them through the effects of illusion, again. But then you will find the real time and space. I mean, it's a transspatial space. I have to use some word for that. It's a trans-temporary time. I mean, we hear about the Astakaliya Lila of Sri Sri Radha Govinda on a daily basis. At 3:36, they're waking up and they're having, I won't go into the details now, but there's all this time frame, time schedule on eternity. 3:36, then at 6 something else, then at 8:24 something else, then at 10:48 something else, then at 12. So there's very time, I don't want to say time confined, because again, there's the influence, time there plays an influence of facilitating the unfolding of the lila. So it's never something restricting, suffocating, but it's facilitating. So the passing of time in the lila allows for nightly lilas and early morning experiences in Bhava, when Radha and Krishna had to be separated from each other because it's the dawn, sun is rising, and Radha and Krishna had to go back to their respective homes because before being discovered, and that creates a particular wave of incremental loving expression. But time is playing as a role there. There is a form of time. Of course, we may say that form of time is Jogamaya's arrangement, is Swarup Shakti, you name it as you want. But there is a sense of time. I'm writing about that in my third book I've written, because sometimes we have this what's called classical theism, through which we have these ideas of God which are a little bit more constricted, I will say. God is changeless, God is impassible, which means he doesn't suffer in any form. God is timeless, God is omnipotent, omniscient, and so on and so forth. And I try to show how that's not true, basically, and how we Gaudiya Vaishnavas have, and not only Gaudiya Vaishnavas, other traditions as well. We can speak of God as being timeless in one sense. Of course, he's not affected by time in terms of getting old and so on and so forth. He's eternally young and all that stuff, yes, but he's also experiencing time, as some theologians will say, in an everlasting way. Again, we are trying to make the best we can with words to describe something that is beyond words, as we talked last week, beyond mind. So what to speak of words? So I will make that clarification just to begin with in terms of my perspective on time. But the main part of your question, I think so, it has to do in connection. Of course, it's related, but how to remain non-judgmental, or how to have a non-judgmental discernment in terms of association. So I'm not saying I'm doing that perfectly. To begin with, I don't want to claim I'm the absolute acharya of that department. I'm really trying my best, or probably I'm not even trying my best, unfortunately, at times. Hopefully I could. But of course, that's important, to be discerning in terms of association, but discerning, that's, and I appreciate your expression, non-judgmental discernment, because sometimes we may collapse these two expressions, again, words, and in the name of discernment, we end up being so judgmental and so much labeling and putting people in boxes, and that's not very healthy for us to begin with. So I will say, and it's tied to what we have been talking before, sometimes we hear in our tradition, these things like, I don't know, asat sanga tyag e vaishnavachar. The behavior of a Vaishnav is characterized by asat sanga tyag, abandoning asat sanga. But the point here is that many times we translate as asat sanga as whomever is not a Gaudiya Vaishnava. And that's problematic, That's problematic. We can have a satsanga in the temple very easily. It's not so difficult. You can end up being judgmental and gossipy and offensive with a whole bunch of other Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And that's a satsanga. No? I recall once Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, he called one Western disciple he had, and he told him he heard that he was being a satsanga himself to others by how judgmental he was being on other Vaishnavas and so on and so forth. So he told him, you have stopped, some years ago, you stopped eating meat, which is very good. But now you have started eating Vaishnava meat, the meat of the Vaishnavas, which is much worse. I will prefer that you go back to eat meat, he said to him. No, but not that you start being judgmental and critic and all the stuff you're doing. No? So he made that point. No? So my point with this is, again, externally, we are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but internally we may be doing things that are worse than what we may think is the worst thing possible. So a satsanga tyag is, again, it's a satsanga. Sat means illusion. Sat means that which is true, that which is real, that which is honest. Asat means the opposite of that. So, and sangha means association to the point that starts to influence me. Sangha also means attachment. So sangha means a type of company that is so, I become so embedded in that I become affected by that. I become attached to that, whether it's something good or whether it's something bad. So the point here is just, how to say, it's not so much about the people you are associating with, but what you are deriving from that yourself. Because some people, again, and this may be a high example, but a very elevated soul can be anywhere with anyone, and it's not indulging in a satsanga. It's delivering the whole environment, or it's learning from, I don't know, like the Bhagavatam, 24 gurus. One of the 24 gurus is a prostitute, right? Generally, you will put the prostitute as a satsanga. But the Bhagavatam is given a different idea here. What's normally seen as a satsanga can be seen as Guru Tattva. If you have the eyes to see that, if you have the capacity to extract Guru Tattva from that. So sometimes it's not so much about the other person. And that way, I end up being judgmental. He's a satsanga. She's bad. This is good. This is, no, and putting labels. But what is how much I am a satsanga or how much I am satsanga? Because if I am a satsanga personified, even if I'm with very healthy people, I will be having a satsanga, not because of their fault, because of how I'm filtering my association with them. You follow? So ultimately, it all goes back to personal responsibility. And I may be surrounded by people who are not very virtuous, very religious, very knowledgeable. But if I'm satsanga, if I'm properly situated in truth and honesty and willing to learn from everyone, I will be having satsanga, even with that people. Of course, again, then comes the sat part. Sat means honesty. Asking myself where I am in all this. How much do I have a capacity to go to the brothel and have satsanga, so to say? I'm capable of that or not? Then again, that's how you start to be satsanga for others, by being honest with ourselves, by being sat. Where I'm standing, what's my adhikar, what's my capacity, what's my lack of capacity, and then we can accordingly establish how we can relate with people from which place, hopefully in a way that is non-judgmental. And if at some point at least for me, that's the most humble and humbling perspective. Instead of saying, oh, she's a prostitute, she's a satsanga, I won't look at her, she's so bad. No, maybe I may say, I don't have the capacity to relate to that particular person in a way that is satsanga. So hopefully in future, I may develop that capacity. So I do not have to limit myself to relating with this or that person. But at this particular time of my life and practice, I need to put some fences. Not because all of them are so bad and I'm so good and I'm innocent, but just because I don't have the and I'm not saying I don't have the capacity to like making a whole shame and guilt and blame trip. Just objective reality. I know that in potential, I can be relating with everyone without being negatively affected, but I don't have that adhikar yet. It's okay, part of the journey. So according to where I am, I will relate to everyone accordingly. And as we know, Rupa Goswami, when he gives this fourfold definition of how to relate, how to love God, have friendship with devotees, be merciful to an innocent person, and take distance from someone envious, he will say, all those relationships are in terms of seva, so to say. So no matter which is the stance I take in those four cases, all of them, I'm doing that. I'm setting those boundaries in service to them, even to the envious. No, if someone is envious, I'm distancing myself. So from that distance, I can appreciate that person better. I can remain a well-wisher. If I get too close, it becomes a mess. I get disturbed and I end up only seeing negative stuff. I forget that Krishna is in the heart of that person, that Krishna unconditionally loves that person. I lose sight of all that positive content. So I need some distance because I cannot keep proper vision in proximity. Okay, that's fine. As long as whatever decision I take, again, is based on personal responsibility and it's based on making the best possible arrangements so I remain respectful to everyone. So I remain honoring the most important instruction that we have been given, which is Trinada Pisunichena Taroda Piseshna Amani Namana Dena Kirtaniya Sadhari. Mahaprabhu is not, we don't have escape from that verse. Like I like to say, every time I'm doing something wrong or I'm feeling bad about something, I can always go to that verse, and that verse always is catching me infraganti. You have this expression infraganti in English? Red-handed? No, how do you say?
Yeah.
You are cocked, like
Red-handed.
red-handed. Okay, that's the English version of the Italian infraganti that we use in Spanish. So every time I go to the third verse of Shikshatakam, I'm caught red-handed. In some way, again, not to make it a shame trip, but just to acknowledge, to be honest with myself, to check on myself, to be accountable with myself. Still, because it's a high standard. No, Mahaprabhu is saying there, offering respect to everyone. Everyone means everyone. We could say even extended that to everything, because as we say, Krishna is in every atom. So our respect shouldn't be limited only to living beings, so to say, human people or other species, but to every atom. So that's Mahaprabhu's golden rule. Now every religion has its golden rule, right? In Christianity, in Buddhism. So that's our version of the golden rule. Respect everyone. So yeah, how to live my life in a way that I can remain respectful to everyone. Sometimes I need to take some distance. Sometimes I need to adjust my vision. As I said the other day, the very word respect, just to wrap up, comes from the Latin respectare. So spectare comes from spectacles, spectare, like lenses. So spectare means to look in Latin, and re means anew. So respect actually means look anew, look again, like adopt a new angle of vision. That's respect. So take the proper perspective so you can always remain honoring things for what they are, or people for who they are. Besides their current messiness, you can still, again, going back to our main original theme today, how they are loved by Krishna, a proper apperception of reality as it is. So to respect everyone is not just an external formality. Jai Prabhu, Jai Maharaj, I respect you, Vanchakalpa. I'm not against that, but we can make a whole facade of that also. So we don't have to look anew. So we don't have to respect, recalculate, GPS, whatever. So that's the thing. What Mahaprabhu said, respect everyone means continually adjust your vision so you can always look at everyone and everything from a place of honoring, seeing Krishna's presence, seeing something positive, seeing their connection with God's unconditional love, so on and so forth. If that's not happening, it's up to us to respect, to adjust our angle of vision. And I would like to end with that beautiful instruction that Srila Siddhar Maharaj gave once. And probably this is the thing that I mostly say during all my classes for those who know my lectures already. But once one devotee asked Srila Siddhar Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, can you please give me some service? And this devotee was very naive, thinking, okay, Guru Maharaj will send me to wash the pots or mop the floor, chant my rounds, whatever. So can you give me some service? And Srila Siddhar Maharaj replied, yes, change your angle of vision. That was the service. That was the reply. Respect. Change your angle of vision. Respect. Look anew. Ultimately, if you have the proper vision, you won't be even needing to ask for service because everything around you is an opportunity, service opportunity. If you have the proper angle, there's not even request, can you give me service? I mean, just look around. No. Our whole lives is a service project. So yeah, anyhow, I can go on and on, but a few thoughts because now battery is really running off. So I don't want also to disappear suddenly, abruptly. So I don't know. I hope that helps. Makes some sense, Yudhishthira Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maharaj,
If anyone did not hear, just say,
Sorry?
if anyone has not heard your podcast with Mahatma Prabhu, highly recommend. I passed it around to many, many people.
Okay.
Really gained a lot, took a lot of notes.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. I really appreciated it. It was very funny for both of us because we were playing this dynamic of
I know.
the inner voice of the Purva Pakshin, so to say, the opposite view, and it was very nice, very interesting.
Yeah, kindred spirits for sure.
Thank you.
Maharaj, I have one request. I'm
Yes.
here in New Jersey with my mother. I wanted to introduce you to her. This is
Okay.
Say hello.
What's her name?
Her name is Hannah, and she turned 99 in May.
Hannah.
She's 99 years old.
Congratulations and happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Greetings from Switzerland. Nice to see you. Congratulations for your wonderful daughter.
I know. She's my one of my daughters. I have another one that's traveling in the sun. Luckily, I have 3 children that are concerned about me, and they come to babysit me. That's my life.
Congratulations
for the 3 of them and everything else around you there. Yeah. Thank you.
And I know that I've gotten my faith in God from her.
Yes.
She's devout. She's Jewish. Maybe she'll hear your talk with the rabbi. But such deep devotion, her whole life.
I pray every night.
She prays every day, she says.
Every night.
Every night.
Every night.
Judaism is most important for me.
Most important thing for her is her
Yeah.
faith.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for
your
introducing us to her.
blessings. You're my
Always
friend.
wonderful to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for extending part of your being. Your mother is to blame in big part, in the good sense of the term, for who you are, and we having the gift of having you here. So thanks
you.
to Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Okay, dear brothers and sisters and dear friends, thank you so much to all of you for gifting me with your company today and your attentive ears and eager hearts, and I'll engage me in hopefully some useful service to you and the community, and looking forward to see you each other. Happy that the internet connection worked today. Hopefully happens the same next week. You never know. So yeah, see you next Saturday, same time, same channel, but ever new, ever fresh dynamics and hopefully insights and sharing. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Shri Gaur Nityananda Gaur Gadadhar Ji ki jai, Sri Radha Madan Mohan Radha Govinda Dev Radha Gopinath Ji ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Preman Haribo, Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha